Okay, everybody, congratulations to the people who made it back into the room. If you can hear me and you're outside, then you should be in here now because we're ready to start again. We're now coming to our last panel of the day. We have a new, different thing in this. What we're going to do is do a poll. If you go into Slido, could we put the Slido information up again, please? If you go into Slido, then you will see that there is a poll in there which is asking you what you see as the main stumbling blocks on the way to innovative air mobility. So if you could please go in so we get a representative view from everybody in the room, that would be great. I'm now going to hand over directly to Kai Bauer, who is our Principal Advisor on Sustainable Mobility. Kai and the panel, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back after the coffee break. Thanks a lot for coming back after the coffee break. I promise we'll have some very, very interesting discussions here this morning that make it worthwhile. It's really a great pleasure and honor to host this panel on innovative air mobility and how to make this new form of transport safe and sustainable. I have a distinguished panel with me here this morning, and I'm really looking forward to our engagement. We already had a very nice introductory round, so we're looking forward to sharing some of the views and the insights with you this morning. Before we go into the introductions and the first round of questions, let me recap a little bit where this topic stands in the context of our conference. And also an overview of where we stand with innovative air mobility as such. We had, as a leitmotif for our conference, the trip from Seville to Sumatra. We have looked at technologies that would do the regional trip. We had looked at technologies that are potential for the intercontinental connection. Essentially, we're now looking at a air taxi, eVTOL, and also drone solutions for the shorter distances. Could be from Singapore to Sumatra, could be from Seville to Madrid, or from here to the airport. Apart from the regulatory stumbling blocks that we've identified yesterday, there's one problem that I identified in this trip that we hadn't actually thought about before. Which is that when you are in Seville, what would be the reason why you want to leave? That is the question that came very strongly last night. Okay, we leave that open for the moment, and anyway have our trip from Seville to Sumatra. Maybe just delay that trip a little bit and enjoy Seville. So that also is another way of thanking again ISA for this great job of hosting us. So, innovative air mobility and this new form of transport. We started out by saying from vision to reality, as Jeremy Cossard introduced us yesterday, and this is really where we stand now. When you go to reality, you notice that even these new things have already a history, and that's what we observe certainly at EASA. We have back in 16 and 17, we've received at EASA the first applications for type certification. Oliver Reinhardt mentioned it this morning, and that's what triggered a whole new world for EASA as a regulator. And in the same year, a roadmap was actually put out to how to handle that, because a lot of people were scratching their head and saying, okay, what do we do with this? It is not easy, as Oliver said this morning. It's not easy. But okay, we went out there with a regulatory framework, looked at 360 degrees, what is needed, and it very quickly came out that, as Oliver again said, it's not easy, meaning not only for the technology side, but also from the side of societal acceptance. Society needs to accept this kind of means of transport in order for it to be a successful business model. Otherwise, it will not fly, as it were. So that's why, together with a regulatory framework that was launched in 2016, we also launched from the other side a study in societal acceptance, which helped us to guide basically us until today. And some of the topics that we'll be discussing today are precisely about societal acceptance. What was the outcome? There was generally a positive sentiment, but the citizens were concerned around safety, privacy, noise, and sustainability, precisely the kind of topics we'll be doing the reality check today. Then that was all formed into a strategy by the Commission, Drone Strategy, the Strategy 2.0, published in November 22, which had flagship projects to address all those issues: technical side, safety side, but also societal acceptance. It includes flagships 4, 5, and 8, which are all linked to RMT 0230, which is maybe a horrible name, but for something quite fascinating, because it's the rulemaking task that provided all that framework and a roadmap that culminated in an opinion that was just published a couple of days ago on the framework for eVTOL, or VTOL capable aircraft, as we call it. So all of that we have. We also have as a flagship the IAM Hub, which is a flagship for EASA to bring together all the stakeholders in a digital platform. I'm sure we have a chance to talk about it later in a minute as well. So overall, what we can see is Europe has really been in a leading role. We have some of the leading actors here with us today from Europe and from across the Atlantic. So I think it will be very, very exciting to have the conversation there around the reality checks that we want to have around the benefits, the safety implications, and all these elements that we talked about. So, starting with Saskia Horsch, you're the head of global regulatory affairs. So you are really at the center of reaching out to stakeholders and partners internationally. You're with the German startup Lilium, so a startup company very much. Tell us a little bit. You've published a very ambitious timeline that we've seen. Tell us a little bit about how you engage with citizens and explain the benefits of your services, and a little bit also, of course, on your timeline and benefits.
Sure,
Saskia.
Sure. Thank you, and thanks for having me here. It's really great to be with everyone today in this audience. And before talking about the societal benefits, maybe it's important to explain first what our concept is about and what it is not about, because there are, when you engage with the public, you can see that there are sometimes still misperceptions or misunderstandings, or just simply, not full understanding of what it is that we're trying to do and what we're trying to offer. So Lilium is building, certifying 100% electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft to start with as a first product. The venture is to create something completely new high-speed, low-noise transportation mode. There will be a pilot on board, so it's not a drone, and this is really something that I encounter on a daily basis. People still think that we're in this drone domain, so unmanned, autonomous, which we're not. We will have a pilot on board, and we will have a pilot on board for a very long time to come. We've got leading capacity, so for passenger transport, we will have 4 to 6 passenger seats, which is quite big. It will be low noise. It will be sustainable because 100% electric. And our focus, and this is important to understand, is regional air mobility. So we're not looking at intra-city routes. We're really trying to connect cities and regions. Initially 175 kilometers operating range, and then going up gradually as the battery capacity extends. So from that concept, some people already get very excited and understand what the benefits are. But I would explain, the real benefit is we will be saving people a lot of time. Of course, you can take the train, the car. We are just adding on to the transportation modes that we have already. But ours will create connections that might not necessarily exist today. Certainly not high speed, and that will, as such, be able to save you a lot of time. So, as an example, think about the connection Seville-Cadiz. I think it's 120 kilometers, something like that. By car, with traffic, etc., you'll probably, and I was checking Google Maps just this morning to verify my statement, you'll be in for an hour and a half, approximately. With our jet, we're looking 30 to 40 minutes. So there's a substantial saving, and also this connection, you don't have a high-speed train, to my understanding. So, and these are the connections that will really make a difference, right? We're creating a real value for people. The second benefit is really, low noise. That's what, we went for our technology, the ducted fans technology, specifically to optimize for noise, because we want to operate in urban environments, of course, so we do need to be able to be, very quiet. And so what our estimations show, based on the demonstrator that we have, but then simulated on our conforming aircraft once it's there, is that we will achieve something like 68 dBA at 100 meters when the aircraft departs, which it's always difficult to compare with other noise, but when you read the comparisons, it's something like you standing next to a washing machine, for example. So it's going to be really low noise. Once it's in cruise, it's inaudible. In a couple of 100 meters distance, you will not be able to hear it. So clear advantage to to helicopters, for example. We will be significantly lower noise compared to that. And then, of course, the sustainability angle with 100% electric. We will basically be, 1/10, I think, of the imprint that normal passenger commercial aviation or airplanes have today. We don't create contrails. It is not nothing, of course. Like someone yesterday said, there will always be a little bit of emission. Of course, we need infrastructure. We need to produce the aircraft. But overall, the infrastructure we need is really minimal. We can use what is there already: helicopter sites that are permitted for eVTOL. We don't need to construct highways. We don't need to construct train trails. So a lot of benefits. And then lastly, there is the opportunity, based on our technology, to scale, which is also a reason why we decided to go for ducted fans. We can build bigger aircraft based on the technology, and then we can basically, in the longer term, as battery capacity improves, cover longer distances with more passengers on board. And then you're talking in terms of contribution to decarbonization of transportation, because then you will be able to do up to 1,000-kilometer distances. We heard our colleagues from Viridian and Hart Airspace yesterday. So this is where we see longer term the journey, the real potential in the journey going.
Thanks a lot, Saskia. I think so. Obviously, the benefits lie with the time savings for the citizens and in a sustainable way, right? That's the case. We'll talk about how to ensure that it's really sustainable in a little bit later in the session. Coming over to Jason McLean, Senior Director on Venture Innovation and Innovation Strategy at the Boeing Company. Jason, thanks a lot for coming over. It's really a pleasure to have you on the panel. You're dealing with innovation, which of course, and there we are particularly interested because it's not that recent that the Boeing company fully acquired Wisk, and Wisk is a system that, at least on the website last time I checked, it was autonomous urban air mobility, right?
Yep.
So that's what you're going for. So please tell us a little bit about what kind of operations you have in mind there, and what the benefits you see for society and citizens.
Sure. Thanks, Guy. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm excited to be in Spain. I think starting at a high level, we say at Boeing that the future of aerospace is digital, producible, sustainable, and autonomous. And one of the exciting parts of my job is getting to invest in early stage companies and emerging technologies to help bring that future to fruition. additionally getting to partner with early stage companies while also benefiting from the depth and the breadth of an OEM like Boeing. So Wisk is a really, I think, powerful anecdote of that. We started the company in 2019 as a joint venture with the company known as Kitty Hawk. Kitty Hawk and its predecessors had existed since 2010. Very similar story to what Oliver said earlier about Volocopter, where just really innovative prototyping around new concepts like electric propulsion and transition, VTOL, autonomy, and really pioneers at Kitty Hawk that over the course of the subsequent decade created really robust prototypes demonstrating how eVTOL technology can actually be commercialized. So in 2019, we shared ownership of Wisk with Kitty Hawk and really started to evolve the company from a prototype culture to a commercialization culture. And earlier this year, just figured that the time was appropriate as the company is developing its 6th generation eVTOL, which is intended to be the go-to-market vehicle certified through the FAA, to bring the entire company inside Boeing and really accelerate the partnership around how we certify and commercialize the vehicle. I think from a benefits of the platform perspective, I think Saskia covered it very well, so I'll try not to be redundant. But I do think that the time and decarbonization are really, really clear benefits. Just to add on a little bit on the time perspective, COVID notwithstanding, we continue to see increased urbanization. We continue to see increased rising middle classes. And for the mission of Boeing, which is to connect, protect the world, the majority of people have never been on an aircraft before. So urban air mobility creates a really exciting opportunity to bring aircraft to a large portion of the population who's never enjoyed it, as well as bringing it in a way that's much more intimate, meaning higher frequency of how people interact with it. And at the same time, unlocking the third dimension for highly dense urban areas clearly creates the opportunity for a lot of time savings. As someone who travels almost every week, as someone who has young kids, I know that I would kill for another 30 minutes, 40 minutes home every day. So that's really impactful to people's lives. Secondly, on the carbonization front, I think Saskia said it really well. I think the key will be to how do we partner with localities to ensure that there's sustainable production in terms of the electric grid, so that while we have zero operational emissions, that we're also thinking about kind of the whole life cycle and making sure that we're being true to our word in terms of how we're thinking about the sustainability and decarbonization. Two aspects that I would also add onto that is the economic benefit. So as when you introduce any new technology, bring any new market to fruition, it's going to create jobs, many of which we probably can't even predict today. So there's the production, there's the operation, there's the sustainment of these vehicles in urban environments. And then similar to how when the jet age came about and there was a whole infrastructure, a whole new business ecosystem that came to support that, I think it'll be very similar as urban air mobility starts to come to fruition here in the coming years. And the job increase, the economic benefit that it will create for these localities is really exciting, as well as the new business opportunities, the network opportunities it will create for airlines. So the opportunity to connect, say, JFK to LaGuardia in New York or Heathrow to Gatwick in London can really create new network opportunities for businesses as well. And then lastly, I'll say safety. I think for Boeing and I think for our industry as a whole, it always starts with safety and the opportunity to introduce a third dimension to urban transportation at the same safety level that we have commercial air traffic today. I think, again, Oliver said it really well, that people have an expectation when they step on a commercial airplane that it's safe, no questions about it. But I think holding ourselves to that standard as we introduce urban air mobility, and then as we think about the multimodal aspect of it, I think there's a real opportunity when we think broadly about autonomy technologies to increase the entire kind of societal expectation of our transportation system. So in America, 40,000 people a year die from auto traffic incidents. That number is 1 million globally. I think there's a real opportunity to rethink and raise the expectations of our overall urban transport system and save lives while doing it, which is really exciting.
We'll come back to the question of safety a little bit and how we actually do that in a minute. But thanks for that initial. I think it was very, very, very clear. it's been a while since my kids were younger, but I feel your point there. I would probably have preferred also that it saves me time and that I can be in that vehicle on my own in quiet. But maybe that's maybe a bit too luxurious. Balkis, so over to you. Balkis Serian, you're CEO and head of urban air mobility at Airbus. You recently appointed, we understand, and so we would be keen to see how you see your priorities being newly appointed, but with the company for a while. So we've heard there were some early activities. Airbus was very early on, also in the game of urban air mobility and air transport. In between, we got maybe a little bit more quiet, but now there's new activity, so we're keen to hear where your priorities are in this, and welcome on the panel.
Absolutely, absolutely. So good morning, everyone, and thank you, Kai, for including us in this panel. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to always continue to work with IASA. It's been a long-standing partnership on any of our products, and for us, it is an absolute essential element of how we build this new industry, this new business, and this new service to our communities. If I step back a little bit, so at Airbus, we started the adventure of urban air mobility. One of my colleagues even said that it was Airbus who first coined the term urban air mobility. I don't know, but that's a fun fact to delve into at some point. But we also see how everything is advancing. So we have urban air mobility, we have advanced air mobility. In the European space, we think about it as innovative air mobility. And for us, it is absolutely about the vehicle. I mean, we are Airbus, we are a producer of many, many types of vehicle, transporting goods and passengers and data and providing connectivity. So of course the vehicle is at our core, and we do love our tech. I mean, if I had hours, I would spend hours just talking about the tech. But if we step back from that, it's more than just the technology. And I think this is why I really appreciate the theme of this conference, Kai. So we can build the greatest tech. It can be the most fantastic technology demonstrator that really pushes the boundaries of what is technically possible. But in order for innovative air mobility and this industry to build, this business to build, and we also have to be honest, we are not there yet. Today, we do not have yet an industry, we do not have a product, we do not yet have a service. But look at everything that we are building. Look at all of the investment, the intellect, the energy, and the enthusiasm that is being poured into it. And we are taking steps to get there. And most important part of that is also the regulations part of it. So when we look at it from an Airbus perspective, we have done technology demonstrators. We have built and flown Vahana in our US facilities, which is a tilt-wing configuration. Everything is 100% electric. Everything is, taking this challenge of 100% electric passenger carrying in urban environments framework in mind. Because when you constrain yourself to this framework, then the challenge becomes very, very clear. Right? So the compromises that you can make and you cannot make become very, very clear. So we've built Vahana, we have built City Airbus Alpha, so all of this on the vehicle side has been proven. We took a step back, and I think this is what you refer to as our quiet moment. Because when we took that step back, we said, okay, we are quite advanced with 2 technology demonstrators, and we could continue to push those into a product. But the real challenge becomes, how does it become viable? Viable not only from a contribution to decarbonization, absolutely, viable as providing an additional layer to mobility services. We're not talking about replacing, and we also have to be quite honest with ourselves about that, but an additive layer to the mobility choices that we will make in our daily lives, but also business viable, right? The technology has to mature, the regulations have to be there, and the communities have to be ready to adopt this new service and this new technology in order to make it business viable. So this is where we really said, okay, now we step back and we come up with what we believe is really a viable technology, which is City Airbus Next Gen. This is our product. So when she enters the market, it is a 4-pax vehicle. The choice that we've taken also is not to push autonomy as a starting point. There will be so much autonomy-enabled technology in the aircraft and in the traffic management system that we build, but we want the pilot on board. We want the pilot on board to provide the engagement with the consumer. Because this is the first time that the consumer will participate in this type of service. So to onboard them, to act as the tourist guide, to act as first responder when we think of emergency medical services, which is really our #1 target first deployment. So the value of having that pilot operator on board is really crucial for us. The other piece is the engagement with the communities. We were part of the EASA survey and the social acceptance. This is key. We have to listen to the communities who will ultimately give the approval of yes or no. Yes or no in my city. Yes or no traffic routes that will potentially fly overhead of my daily existence. So the community engagement is absolutely key. And finally, if we really are honest, it is also a bit of a road to go, right? We have to be patient on this one as well. So the steps that we start to take, how regulations are forming, how the technology is improving, all of this is happening in parallel. So it's an absolutely fascinating place to be. Sometimes it's a frustrating place to be. We would like it to be faster. We would like the technology and the battery technology in particular to replicate at a higher rate. But the fact that we are taking very, very conscious steps forward is also a very inspiring thing to be a part of.
Thanks a lot, Balkis. That I think gives us a good, very 360-degree insight into where your priorities lie, and also good explanation why it went a little bit quiet for some time, the reflection time. Yeah. Thanks a lot for that. I will go to Daniel now. Daniel Garcia Montevaro. Welcome on the panel. You're head of drone business development at Enaire, the Spanish air navigation service provider. You're also involved with airspace development and a platform actually for airspace development in Spain. So we've heard now a lot around the technology side of the vehicles. Your job is somehow to make that all happen in the air and make sure that it's safe and efficient in the air. So please share a little bit of your insights there on how you make that happen and what your priorities are in this area.
Okay, thank you, Kai. Thank you to EASA and EASA for the invitation to be here. Well, yes, as a representative of the National Spanish Air Navigation Service Provider, well, everyone knows about the nowadays in this summer we have a total records of movements in Spain, and talking about air traffic control. And at the same time, we have to talk about the new entrants, the drones, that are currently operating, and year by year, the numbers are increasing. We have also, and we don't have to forget, the high altitude operations. That is something very important. And in the ATM environment also, that we have to comply with all the evolution. So now we talk about the eVTOLs. How can integrate these operations in the short term and in mid-term? Well, we have solutions. First, from managing with digital tools in order to, because before the eVTOLs, we have to manage first the drone environment, because the eVTOLs, they are going to start maybe in a first step in, well, not for sure, in piloting and with a safety pilot on board. So we have to first set the steps, the foundation, with the creation of airspace. I think it's quite important, because the most important part of creating the airspace is that the managing and integration of these new entrants is the independency, or at least not to increase the workload of air traffic controllers. So it's very important. So in Enaire, we are supporting and all together with AESA and DGAC and the Ministry of Transport, the first step of foundating the airspace environment according to the European regulation. So for us, it's very important a flagship project that is in place, that is Welcome, that is led by Eurocontrol. This project is participating in 3 countries, Spain, Italy, and France. And for Spain, it's very important because we have 8 different communities in Spain that the objective of the project in 25 is to have different environments of USpace in different areas. And we have use cases that are related to eVTOLs also. So, for instance, we are doing now, with the support of Eurocontrol, the airspace risk assessment, the USpace airspace risk assessment in Benidorm, in Valencia. And in parallel, we are preparing the certification with AESA in order to start operations in everything, it's okay, in mid-2024, in 1 year ahead. So these are the first steps we are preparing for the future. This USpace is a first step for drone operation. It's not ready for unmanned operations for eVTOL, of course, because this is a first step regulation. But I think these are the first steps. There are other projects that are in place that some colleagues from here are participating also. That it's Opera and Eureka and the SESAR framework, and it's very specific focus in eVTOL operations, vertiports, etc. So I think these projects, they will have some outcomes in 2025, 2026 that will be very, very important for incomes, also for the inputs, for the regulation and for the future operation of these vehicles.
Thanks a lot, Daniel, for that introduction. I think it gives us a sense of just how, it's a complex task to have the vehicles flying around, integrated in airspace. I think your intervention gave us a clear idea of what needs to be done in this area and where we stand. Starting simpler in a way with the use space, not simple, but simpler in that sense. So thanks a lot, and welcome again. Antilio Viguera Jimenez, welcome on the panel. Chief Technical Officer at CATEC, Aerospace Technology Center here in Seville, actually. Yeah. And our host this afternoon, by the way, I understand. So for those of you who go on the study visits, we'll have the pleasure to come along with Antilio.
There are still a few places left. If you want to join, you are welcome.
Right, there you go. That's a rare occasion. So go for your bookings. So have seen Antilio. We've seen different concepts of operations, different technologies that are being developed by OEMs. We've heard from Daniel a little bit how he sees the integration into airspace, because we need to make sure that is happening safely and efficiently. We want to have, of course, attractive routes. As your technology center, of course, you do research and you have a bit more of a broader view from that research and technology perspective. Can you share a little bit where you see currently the landscape and where would be the priorities to make this new form of transport happening?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having here in this roundtable. I would like to start talking about this innovative air mobility concept that we have been seeing, that is about eVTOLs, but also about drones. No? It's transportation of goods and also of people. At least from CATEC, we see that the innovative air mobility is ready to take off. It's getting closer. And we think that technology is key, for being able to start this market and to start having a sector. From what we can see, there are 4 main, I would say, technology blocks that are quite important for the success of the innovative mobility. First, Vázquez commented already, is energy. It's true that both for the drones, and for the large aircraft, it's quite important to increase the density of the energy of the current battery. And could be great. Instead of 250, we can get 500 kilometers. Or a drone, instead of flying 45 minutes, can fly for 4 hours. And electrical, well, could be great, for a lot of applications. So we think this is quite important. There are progress, it's getting progress, but it's a key enabler, from the technology point of view. The second point I would say, and talking in general, not only the eVTOL part, that is true that in Europe at the beginning will be piloted one, but also talking about drones, is autonomy. Autonomy can be used to increase safety. Okay, so we can have detect and avoid, autonomous detect and avoid systems for drones. The drone in the future could be able to react safely to non-planned situations, and we think that technology could help a lot to increase the safety. But also, and also very important, is to increase the efficiency. There are a number of use cases and business cases that they are only going to happen if the service is efficient. And right now, if we, for example, think about logistics, it's going to be difficult that one pilot, one aircraft is going to be efficient enough to be competitive enough with respect to other means for logistics. So we think that it's key that the technology allows in the future that one operator supervises a number of aircraft at the same time. And we think this is also very important. Related to what Daniela said, integration into the airspace. More specifically, communication. Sometimes we don't think too much about that, but at least from our practical experience, there's no silver bullet yet in the communication part. They say, okay, this is the communication system that solves all my problem, especially for long distances. We think that still we need to do some, it's important, the technology development there. And communication is a key enabler for digitalized and automated airspace integration, airspace management. And this also is key. If we have good communications with quality of service, we will be able to digitalize and automatize an important part of the integration into the airspace. And this will facilitate a lot, especially in dense airspaces like cities, the implementation of innovative air mobility services. And last, I will say, it's true that with the eVTOLs, there's a very innovative, disruptive configurations, eVTOL configuration. But also, I would say that even in the drone part, there's still room for new configurations with distributed electrical propulsion that will allow not only for vertical and takeoff landing, but also to be able to adapt your cruise speed, which for some applications is quite crucial, depending on the needs of your mission. And then, so this is a summary for what we see that are the four main priorities. If then I have to choose two that we think that is very, very important, I will say that we really need, especially in the drone part, to start flying recursively and we can escalate long distances. It's true that there are some operations long distance, but also we have to be frank with ourselves with a lot of limitations. So this is not something that you can replicate easily, in another country or in another area. So the integration into the space, a safe integration space, I think it will facilitate long distances operation, and this is crucial for the drone market. It's very important. And the second, I would say, is autonomy. Autonomy, I think, it will allow to have healthy business cases. And this is also important in order to make this sector competitive enough that so this revolution will create a real industry in the next year.
Thanks a lot, Tidio. I think that's actually a very powerful statement also and a challenge for all of us, also on the regulatory side, how to make that possible. If that's an important element of a economically sustainable business model. So I think that's going to be a very important element, and thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Safety. We've had yesterday our intervention by Alain Leroy, innovating safely, safe innovation. Jason, you've also mentioned the foundation of that safety is the foundation of a Boeing company, and I think that goes across the board from the aviation industry, of course. That safety is sort of the backbone DNA element, and that's of course why also we have the EASA Safety Conference. It's all about safety. It's part of the success of the sector. You mentioned very clearly that the aim is commercial air transport with a Wisk air taxi has to have the same level of safety as commercial air transport. So how do you do that?
Yeah.
Where are the pain points or the most difficult points to achieve that?
Well, I think how you achieve it is there's a few aspects to it. I think first is you have to design for it. You have to build it with intentionality. I just don't think that you can practically or efficiently, incrementally get an aircraft from piloted to autonomous or half-life your way to autonomy. So that's why we've taken a very intentional approach with Wisk with their Generation 6 vehicle, their certified vehicle, take a clean sheet aircraft designed for autonomy. And I think really starting with that as your initial starting point in terms of how you are going to design, produce, and sustain the aircraft is how you can do it safely. And then working with regulators, right? Because there is a process in place that has been built up over decades that has enabled airspace to be the safest form of transportation in the world. So we're not trying to create new processes. We're trying to do the functions that have traditionally been done by a pilot without one or with a pilot on the ground through the exact same process with which we've certified our prior vehicles. I think the second point is understanding that it's not just the aircraft. So while we're going to have a certified autonomous platform in the production and the operations, there are also some really critical pieces around airspace integration and being cognizant of the off-platform capabilities that are required to enable scalable, safe autonomy. That's part of the reason why one of the current joint ventures we have, SkyGrid, is focused exactly on that. How do you have off-platform safety of life services that are going to enable Wisk or other platforms to operate in the airspace safely? I think Boeing, Airbus, all of us here have a very strong interest in ensuring the continued integrity of the airspace. And there's going to need to be new technologies and different ways to perform functions outside of just what's on board the aircraft. And then I think lastly, it's thinking about the broader ecosystem. So how do you ensure things like consistent communications, redundant and persistent communications while the aircraft is in flight? How do you think about the infrastructure that's going to be required, whether there's ground-based detect and avoid, or other capabilities that are going to need to be there to enable the safe operations of these vehicles? So it's starting as you're at clean sheet designing the vehicle, also being really proactive about how do you think about the value chain or the ecosystem that's required to enable the safe operations of these vehicles, and really leveraging partnerships, partnerships across industry, partnerships across regulatory, partnerships from those who will be first movers in operation before Wisk, so that the Lilium, the volocopters, or Joby, whoever it might be, and really iterating and incorporating those lessons learned into our concept of operations, so that when we're the second mover and coming to market later in the decade, that we have a lot of confidence around the concepts of operations and how we're going to introduce that autonomy safely.
Right, that's a very comprehensive view on safety. I think that reflects well on all the aspects that we're touching upon. You didn't mention particularly the batteries, so you're not particularly worried about the batteries?
The batteries?
Yeah.
I won't say I'm not worried about the batteries. I can't remember who, but I know somebody mentioned that improved batteries would be great for thinking about use cases or business models. But I think the fact of the matter is, I was just having this conversation before we got up here. I know Boeing, and I think every one of the eVTOL competitors have a go-to-market case that closes with current battery technology. And then we have to think about iterative innovation. So as new chemistries are introduced or current chemistries are improved, how do we think about certifying those quickly and getting them on board the aircraft so that you can continue to improve the range, improve the number of use cases, and continue to improve the economics for all of the eVTOLs.
Great, thanks a lot for that. We had yesterday, of course, a conversation around also the point that you mentioned of working with a regulator, and I think that was the panel 2 yesterday from Jesper had a lot of highlights on how important that is when developing new technologies. It's about working together. And of course, Boeing and Airbus, you have worked a lot with the regulators at the EASA. Maybe that is that's a bit different in the startup world. What is your experience there from basically taking safety cases to EASA, to the regulator, and from a startup world where, of course, there's no long history of certifying aircraft?
So maybe just also a word in addition to what the other speakers have said. Safety, of course, for a company like us, which is seen as the new kids on the block, maybe, and Volocopter said, we had these 3 young guys who came together to sort of like in the garage, build an aircraft. Safety for us has been always the #1 priority, foundational element, and is very much sort of the guiding principle that we pursue, whether it's aircraft design, whether it's the people that we hire or the partners that we work with, or in fact the regulatory requirements that we sort of input to when talking to EASA and other regulators in terms of what are the standards that we kind of need. Just on the aircraft design, given that we rightly so have to develop an aircraft that meets the commercial aviation standards. So we're certifying 10 to the -9, so super high, achieving this with multiple redundancies that we build into our aircraft. But then not only the aircraft design, beyond that, I think the people that we hire is really important. We've got a super experienced leadership team, many coming from Airbus, but also other companies who really have long-standing expertise and knowledge and know how to build an aircraft. So really serious, and really also establish this company as one that is able to produce and certify and scale a business in the aviation segment. So very much away from crazy startups in the garage type picture that you could have. Obviously, procedures internally are super important. We've established like a safety management system whereby we really make sure that up to the very top, there's a transparent insights and knowledge about any kind of hazards and how to manage them. Where this is kind of reviewed, you've got an end-to-end reporting system, also something that is really key to how we function as a company. And then going to the more external world, obviously. The wider ecosystem, as you already mentioned it, top tier suppliers from the aviation sector, and I'm not going to mention single ones because I'm surely going to forget a few important ones, but that's obviously key. The operators, given that we're a manufacturer, we're not operating our aircraft ourselves, really important that you make sure that our operators have track record in safety. Mention NetJets, Bristow, small ones like Globe Air. Really, this is one of the fundamental elements. Then in infrastructure, same thing. We collaborate with a number of airports who really know how to build the infrastructure that we need to actually then take off and land. So really, in the entire ecosystem,
rebuilding the entire the experience from that.
And last point on regulation. Just now in August, EASA published the opinion on the future rules for air ops, and here I think we've contributed to really ensure that we have a very high standard in terms of highest standards in terms of safety, while at the same time allowing new technologies to come to market. That has been, I think, a role model exercise on how to make rules that really, make sure that we are comparable, if not higher, in terms of safety levels in commercial aviation, but at the same time allowing these diverse models, because we're all very different, we come with different technologies, actually allow us to come to market in a timely fashion.
Thanks a lot, and good to hear that was indeed the target of the opinion 2023, which puts together the set of rules that are intended to achieve safely in a performance-based manner.
May I just add maybe just one other element to it? I think, it goes without saying when we're sitting in the room at a EASA conference. that safety is number one. Safety is a non-negotiable. Safety is why we are here. Without safety, there is no industry, there is no business, there's no service, there's no aircraft. I think this is a very element of our core. And when we think of what we are building with our eVTOL, with our City Airbus Next Gen, our simple motto is this. So whatever the product, be it a commercial jet, be it a regional, be it a satellite, be it a small drone for surveillance, every single vehicle will fly and operate with the Airbus name on it. So there is an incredible amount of responsibility that comes with that. This is a given. This is what the expectation of everyone is. But when we think about safety, we also have to bring it down to a very, very human level. Safety is not just about operations and standards and certification and all of that. When we are dealing with this new type of mobility, it is perceived safety. Perceived safety as judged by the general public, and this is based on trust. So perceived safety, and when we are really successful, success in perceived safety means that not just us as aerospace enthusiasts and people who are part of the industry trust and are excited about this new form of mobility, but when each of us as individuals are willing, excited, and able to step into these vehicles, take the service with our families. This is the test of true safety. This is the test of true perceived safety, and this is the test of success. If everything that we have been building collectively is actually leading to this new service.
Because I think this actually links very, very nicely to the notion of the societal acceptance that we don't want to achieve. We had the dimension that we've seen before. I think we can already put the questions on Slido since we are getting towards the end of the session. But I wanted to also ask Daniel on the notion of societal acceptance and getting the trust of people. There is actually something quite unusual in the use-based regulation, which has a reference precisely to engaging with the community, to raise this kind of understanding and the trust about the services. Can you say a word on this?
Yes, I can be brief. Yes, the exception with the US space is because the operation is at very low level, the society has to be involved. And in the National Action Plan of the US space deployment, we have carried out the construction of different working groups and with different levels of engagement of the society. And for instance, as I mentioned, we are carrying out the airspace risk assessment already in Benidorm, and we held a local and regional stakeholder meeting where there were all the representatives of the city, the city hall, and the authorities, companies. So that was an example that in order to deploy, in this case, a US-based environment, it has to be involve everyone, including the society of the place. So this is an example of engagement of the community.
Yeah, I think that is very, very good. It links also to the platform that EASA is well developing on community engagement and all the sustainability topics that go with it. Thanks a lot for that intervention. We have already quite some very interesting questions to get a little bit feedback from the audience. I'm almost tempted to give the first one, of course, back to Daniel, but maybe Antilio, you also want to say something on this first question around when there's an increasing number of elements in flight from your experience, considering mobility development and other airborne elements, how can airborne collision be avoided? As you wish.
Yes.
Go for it.
For instance, in case of U-Space, we have different cases about how to manage the manned aviation, or in case of in the eVTOL, for instance, with drones, and it's with a conspicuity to have electronic conspicuous to give visibility to other users, and that is resolved in the US space operations, for instance.
Yeah. I will complement that from a technological point of view, and I think the conspicuity is going towards that direction, it is much easier a cooperative detect and avoid system than a non-cooperative one. So going towards cooperative, so everybody, all the users of the airspace cooperate, and they are able to, in a digital way, to share their position or the intent to fly, will for sure increase the safety and will facilitate a lot in the safe integration into the airspace of the new entrants.
Thanks. I think that.
If I can add on to that
Yes.
too, I think this is well, for one, there are already some, ICAO RPAS standards around how aircraft communicate with each other and deconflict. But I think this is also an opportunity for regulators to harmonize and really drive clarity into how autonomous vehicles will cooperate with each other in the airspace. And then secondly, you're always going to have to prepare for that scenario where there's a non-cooperative aircraft in the airspace. And this is an opportunity where I think testing and simulation can play a really critical role in helping to enable and prove out technologies that will eventually be operationalized. And again, just a really strong opportunity for regulators and industry to partner together on how to solve that issue.
Thanks a lot. I think that was a very comprehensive answer to the question. Nobody has mentioned lighter than air. Anything in their pockets for lighter than air? Of course, we are ready to certify lighter than air. No worries on that bit. And it's another one, I think, of the vehicles and modes of transport that can provide a solution in the future. So no, I think we're technology agnostic. I think that's the main message here for lighter than air in this context. The third question, very interesting. We heard comparisons about the journey times of eVTOLs. Of course, the assumption is that we can save time, right? Who wants to say something around these questions? Are we really going to be saving time realistically in this?
Maybe I can
start. So just from our perspective, I think time savings is a very interesting element. It is perhaps an easy element, and that's why we talk about it in time savings. There are very real calculations that we can do. As we start off the panel between, okay, I take a train, I take this, point to point is very, very easy. I think time savings, though, is not going to be the answer for everyone. And when we think about how the airspace will develop, how the airspace will be federated, when we think of the trip to the airport, one of the things that we're talking about right now that we're working on internally as part of our UTM activities is how do we federate traffic at an airport? Yes, point to the airport is a direct time savings, but then how do we federate the traffic around the airport? What is getting the priority in terms of time savings? What is really my end-to-end journey of, because again, if we are realistic, might not be the sexiest proposition, but the first trips are not going to be, I'm going to book and I'm going to be picked up from point and I'm going to be dropped off exactly to the end point, right? So there's a lot of intermodality that's going to happen. So talking about time savings only, I think would limit the potential of what we can achieve. So it is, how can we be additive? What beyond time savings is a true value add to the communities that we're going to serve? And then it also opens up some other use cases that are not only time savings dependent. That's not the only persona that we're trying to serve here. Right? And this is why, again, we focus on medical applications, right? How can a medical applications be additive to improving the rescue chain? Right? So to open up our minds a little bit.
Maybe to just add on that, and if I read the question correctly, it's also about congestion and the fact that, if you see scaling this industry could lead to further congestions, right? So I think what I try to picture is that what we are trying to do is really also open up new routes where you don't have routes today. So from that perspective, time saving is still there. I agree with you. There's other elements, but it's a clear benefit to add for people in these routes that did not exist in the same way. And also, I don't think that we will scale so fast that we can talk about eVTOL congestion in the air like within a year. This is not realistic. I think this will gradually build up. There will be some sort of replacement of existing aircraft, particularly when we look at the regional model. So I think that the question of congestion maybe needs to be seen under this slide.
A slow phase
Yeah.
and ramp up situation.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. I will take the last question on for now and for today, even though I think we could have the conversation for much longer. The question here, third one, have we accounted for the pollutant effects over the projected aircraft life cycle, including the battery production? So here, I think from the other side, we have a very clear answer that we are working on a prototype standard for that, and that's basically where we are engaging with industry on this, to make sure that there's a comparable way of taking account of the entire life cycle emissions. I know from industry side, you wish to comment on this?
I can provide a very short answer, and the question is, yes, that analysis is done. I think that's part of, when I started earlier and I said, we say that the future of aviation is digital, producible, et cetera. Part of that is how we use model-based systems engineering to really have really robust estimates of the life cycle cost of aircraft from when we design it to when end of life and recycling of the aircraft. And batteries are going to be a really critical part of that. And it's also not a solution or not a challenge that's specific to aviation, right? As we think about the ground transportation becoming electric as well, they're going to face similar challenges. So the short answer is there's no silver bullet. Electric propulsion has its challenges, but it does provide an avenue to use sustainable energy. And we're going to have to continue to look at how do we drive sustainability into the battery and cell production itself as we begin to mature and scale that technology.
Great, thanks. I think at this point, looking at the time, it's time to recap a little bit the number of points before I give a last question to the panel here. So, by way of summary, I think we've seen three main important points coming out of the conversation that we had today. One is around the reality checks that we've done and how to achieve societal acceptance. And there were clear messages here around having the same safety level as commercial air transport, at putting all the measures in place to ensure sustainability and low noise, and building that trust, which is a safety element, but it also has let's say, a personal perception component, as Balkis mentioned. So societal acceptance is a very important stream on this getting into reality. The third one is around agile regulation. We believe that, and we've heard from many on the panel, that there has been a very dynamic and agile way of dealing with preparing the regulatory framework for drones and eVTOLs at all risk levels. Very risk-driven, operation-centric. So there was certainly also a blueprint for the future to continue that agile way of dealing with things, cooperating, like Jason also mentioned, between regulator and industry. And the last point, which is coming out, is the need for a very strong governance and collaboration, because these innovations that we see can only work in a collaborative mode between the regulator, the industry, all parties. We need, of course, research, technology companies. We need the ANSPs on board. So all of that only works in a strong collaborative mindset. Glad to say that we have a solution from the other side, the IAM Hub, which provides a platform, an actual digital platform for this collaboration. Now, as a closing question, this is an annual conference, right? So in 12 months, we'll be sitting here again in whatever configuration. But if we look back then here today, what would be the most important thing you think that the things that need to be happening between now and in 12 months for IAM to succeed? Starting with Saskia.
So I think, the basic is that we now deliver on what we said and plan to deliver, right? So assembling our conforming aircraft, going through the ground test and having first flight next year, which is it's going to be really, really important to show, this is coming, this is real, it is the future. So there's really the responsibility on us. I think the second one, and we've not really talked about this today, but Oliver mentioned it earlier today. Funding is important. I mean, this is an incredibly expensive venture. We've already raised private capital of more than $1.3 billion, and we will continue to need funds to get to the moment where we actually get to market. We need programs like, for example, CSAR to allow us to really continue to test, to bring the ecosystem together, to bring regulators, partners together to really test how the commercial environments will actually look like. And I'm very happy that we have actually one of our CSAR projects here, will be delivered here in Spain with Enaire also as a partner. So really important that we continue to have these kind of programs to, for future things that we need to test.
I think we will.
And last but not least, I think regulation, I think at the EU level, we're in a very good shape. We've got the framework that we need to actually get, start our operations. I think well done, EASA, for all the hard work in that space. I think at national level now, we need to see a little bit more of a drive. I think some member states are really at the forefront and already very active, setting up expert groups, doing gap analysis and understanding where new regulations are needed. I think this is one of the areas where we need to probably advance more and a little bit faster, seeing that start of operations is pretty soon. Since we need vertiports to operate, we need solutions, airspace integration solutions, so that we can actually fly from A to B. So I think these are the areas that we need to see more in the next 12 months.
Thanks a lot. Looking at the time, we're a little bit over time, so very crisp, please. The things that we need in 12 months.
Yeah, I think the two things are, one, just for both industry and regulators to resource, execute, and drive clarity in how these are going to come into operation. So, every organization, whether it's Boeing, industry, or regulatory, have competing interests, but being really intentional about resourcing these efforts, industry executing, and the more that we at Wisk can present actual real things for regulators to react to, the quicker we can drive clarity into our joint efforts. And then lastly is just, again, jointly in partnership to continue to drive the public discourse. And the point around eVTOLs and even autonomous eVTOLs at Wisk aren't science fiction or aren't something that we're thinking about in 2050. It is an aircraft that we're building right now with the intention to certify. And continuing to drive home that point. And we actually had the opportunity to fly our Generation 5, our prior generation aircraft at Oshkosh Air Show in Wisconsin in the US. And for people to actually see what an eVTOL flying, how it sounds, what does it look like without a pilot on board, just making it really real for people and building on the perception is reality, getting the public comfortable with what we're introducing.
Thanks. Marcus.
12 months from now, so we will be flying. So we'll be flying City Airbus Next Gen, so will be a lot of excitement around that as well. And if I look at the industry level, I really applaud EASA for the leadership that the agency has taken. Thought leader, regulatory leader, pushing the boundaries, pushing the regulations, and what we are seeing, because Airbus operates, as do Boeing, on a global scale. So yes, we will EASA certify first. This is our home turf. This is where we will build. But then the cooperation at a global level will really allow this industry to shape and to scale as well. We cannot have different regulations in one region and another. So I would really ask EASA to continue this leadership position, continue the cooperation when we're seeing it with FAA, we're seeing it with JCAB, we're seeing it with ANAC, but please continue it because it's absolutely important for the long-term scalability of it as well.
Thanks a lot. Well received. We have FAA colleagues in the house as well, so working on it.
Yes, for 1 year, I really hope that we will start seeing replicable and scalable long flights with drones, at least in rural areas. I think it has a large potential. I hope in 1 year we will see it. And also, I think it's important that also the authorities start working the implementation for highly operations or highly autonomous UAS. I know that JARUS is working on that, and I hope they will continue, so we will start having the detailed implementation, how to make this happen in reality, having highly autonomous UAV operation in the next years.
Thanks a lot. Very clear. Daniel.
Well, I think the most important thing for the next 12 months is, of course, the regulation consolidation of the eVTOLs, but I would make a proposal, and it's for the next 12 months to consider to have inputs or insight if there is, I don't know if in 1 year there will be a panel about innovative air mobility, but I will try to get the main results or how is the result of the projects that currently are in place, like Eureka, Opera, etc. And I think it would be very interesting also to coordinate with Advanced Air Mobility group that is being created in ICAO also. And I think it would be an interesting milestone in 12 months ahead.
We'll check on that. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for the panel. That was very insightful. We'll check on how far we got in 12 months, including the flight. And we're closing the plan with that. Thank you very much, and sorry for being a bit over time.
Thank you.